Thanks for joining me. This is Addict MMA. I'm Derek Evil. It's been a long time, as it usually is. I take a long time to get back to doing these things. Sometimes I'm on the regular, sometimes I'm not. Look, technology's a bitch and the economy sucks. I love America. Let's get on to it. UFC 126 is probably one of the biggest fight cards I've been waiting for a long time. Not even the fight card, just the main event. I'm a huge fan, as anybody knows, of Belfort, the Phenom. And before we get into that, let me just go ahead and start at the beginning of the fight card. But man, I can't wait for the Anderson Silva Belfort fight. Later on that. All right, first things first. First fight of this night. Dude, this is, remember back at UFC 100 when we thought it just couldn't get any better than this? And the fight card was phenomenal. We were thinking, how are they ever going to top UFC 100? It was an awesome fight card, but that was only 3 fights. This is an entire fight card set up right here. I mean, since UFC 100, it's been absolutely amazing. And God damn it, if I don't love this sport each and every day more than the day before it. So let's get on to this. Opening up the night on the pay-per-view event, the bantamweights, get it, and you couldn't have picked 2 better bantamweights to go to town. First of all, you got Antonio Benuelos fighting out of the pit, strong wrestler, excellent hands. I'm not a huge fan of Antonio Benuelos. You know, he was one of the first people to be on the Tap Out program back when they first had their own little reality series and they were going around sponsoring people. He's very good. He puts on some of the best fights you're ever going to see, but to me, Antonio Benuelos is kind of like a Scott Smith. Not that technically good, but man, damn it if he's not going to put on a great fight, and you're going to remember this guy. But, you know, he's going up against former Ironheart champion, former Shudo champion, and former WEC Bantamweight champion, Miguel Torres. Dude, that guy's a nightmare. I don't care who you are. I don't care if you're the best fighter in the world. You got to be a little bit nervous when you're stepping into the cage with that guy. A black belt Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, 23 fights by submission, 23 victories by submission. How you get most are triangle and rear naked chokes. So, you know, he get bread and butter are the rear naked and the triangle chokes. But who cares, man? So what if he's only using 2 chokes? The guy is phenomenal. 23 fights finished by submission. A black belt in BJJ. He's held 3 different bantamweight championship fights in 3 different organizations. So I mean anything can happen in a fight. But if this sport is so unpredictable, then how come I'm so good at calling these fights all the time? So I'm going to give it to Miguel Torres. I'm not going to say it's a first round fight. I think we'll probably see this one go to a decision. 3 rounds, and it'll probably end up unanimous for Miguel Torres. But let me tell you something. That Antonio Benuelos, he's going to put it on him, and he's not going to make it easy. So it's going to be a really fun fight, and it's going to be one hell of a fight to start off, you know, UFC 126. It's going to be great. And then moving on to another very exciting fight, John Bones Jones, say that shit 3 times fast. John Bones Jones taking on Ryan Darth Bader in the second fight of the night. This is a huge fight. Both guys are undefeated. Well, Bones Jones isn't undefeated. He's got 1 loss due to disqualification because he was throwing the north to south elbows from full mount on Matt Hamill instead of east to west or west to east. You know what I'm saying? You can't throw him down like this. You can kill somebody. Not that you couldn't kill him here, but anyway, in America, sport of MMA, elbows north to south, 12 to 6, if you whatever you want to call it, those are illegal. And I mean, he beat the crap out of Matt Hamill like nobody's ever done, but still lost. So anyway, both fighters are undefeated, if you ask me. We'll just put an asterisk next to that 1 loss. Bader, I mean, to me, this fight, I mean, it's wrestler versus wrestler, but it's 2 different kinds. It's strong traditional wrestling, Arizona State's own Ryan Bader against John Bones Jones, who I mean, the wrestling, I mean, the throws, the upper body throws, the Greco-Roman, the underhooks, all of that, man. I mean, this guy is phenomenal. I don't know that he'll be able to manhandle Ryan Bader as big as he is, like Bones did against like a Stephan Bonner. Stephan Bonner's a big guy, but I mean, Ryan Bader just looks like he's thick, cock diesel muscle, and that's going to be a little hard to throw around, especially when we're talking about a guy who you know, came out of Arizona State University. I mean, that school in itself has a slew of names, not just Ryan Bader, but you're talking about our current heavyweight champion, Cain Velasquez. You're talking about legendary wrestlers such as Dan Severn. We're talking about CB Dalloway. We're talking about a lot of great guys come out of that school. So to say that Bones Jones wrestling is going to be better than Bader's, I doubt it. But I think it's going to come down to the stand-up ability. I don't see Bader's wrestling outdoing Jones's wrestling. I think Jones is going to do just fine. Sure, there's going to be some takedowns, probably both ways. I'm sure Bader will score some takedowns, get some top time, and I'm sure that Bones will take Bader down, get a little top time. Both these guys are going to get right back up to their feet, and it's going to be a bloody war. And in the end of the day, I'm going to tell you, based on what I've seen against Bader and his fights and Bones and his, cardio is going to win this fight, and I'm thinking it's going to be Jones that goes on, because once Bader gets into that halfway point through the second round and you've given him a bloody war, you've given him hell, he starts to drop his hands a little bit like he did against Little Nog. He gets a little tired. So in the end, I'm not even gonna say decision. I think Bones can finish this fight. I really do. It's a hard thing to say against Bader because Bader, if he hits you one time, dude, is lights out. But Bones is such a phenomenal dude. I'm telling you, John Bones Jones is the future of the light heavyweight division, and he's gonna be for a long time. I mean, I think this guy's almost to the ability to take out guys like Machida, and I don't want to say Shogun just yet. I'm saying because they're right behind me, but I don't want to say it just yet. But this guy is the future of the division in this sport. Keep your eyes on him. So I'm going to go ahead and give it a TKO victory, third round probably, to Bones Jones over Ryan Bader. Moving on to another exciting fight, Jake Ellenberger is going to take on Carlos Roca. Dude, I mean, I'm not going to give you a solidified guess or an answer on who I think is going to win this fight. You're talking about a guy here. Hold on, let me get my notes ready here. Carlos Roca is 9-0. He's only got one fight out of the first round. He spent less than 22 minutes in his entire career in the cage. He's training, he gets in there, and he wins. Now, in the mixed martial arts, sometimes it doesn't always matter, but I think it does in this one, just like it did for Shane Carwin against Brock Lesnar. If he did not punch himself out, Brock would have been shit meat in the freaking second round, but unfortunately, you punch yourself out, and that's what happens. I don't know if Roca's going to do that. Coming off his first win at UFC 122, which was excellent, is another submission fighter, very well versed in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. He's not one move to be his bread and butter move. He can go to anything. He can do arm bars, he can do chokes, rear naked, anything. It doesn't matter. Back mounted chokes. It doesn't matter what he's doing. He's going to do it. Well, rear naked is a back mounted choke, isn't it? Anyway, if it goes past the first half of the second round with Jake Ellenberger's ground and pound is very, very, very good top control, very strong wrestling, and his devastating elbows once he gets in that top control. If he can take this fight to the halfway point of the second round, I think he can beat Roca. Now, if Roca can keep that fight in the first round, then obviously I think Roca can beat him. Two really tough athletes going at it in this fight. It's going to be hard to call. I think it's probably going to be the hardest fight for me to call all night, other than the next one. Forrest Griffin versus Rich Franklin. This to me just seems like a novelty fight. I don't know that these guys are really fighting for anything as far as, maybe they're moving up the ranks. Obviously, you win a fight, you move up the ranks a little bit, maybe, depending on how you fight. But when it comes to Rich Franklin and Forrest Griffin, I mean, Franklin's just kind of a floater anymore, and he can't beat the middleweight champion, and he hasn't gotten to the point in light heavyweight that he deserves a title shot, or I don't want to say doesn't deserve one, but you fans at home, you know what I'm talking about. It's just, when you see the name Rich Franklin, you think novelty fight. Same with Forrest Griffin anymore. You think novelty fight. Griffin got his one belt. Franklin got his belt. They former champions. In the end, I think Rich Franklin can probably take this fight. Forrest Griffin, I think, is going to be a little bit bigger than Rich Franklin. Weight-wise, I think he might come in a little more thick. Forrest Griffin's a big guy. But in the end, I think Rich Franklin's skill will outdo Forrest Griffin's skill. Both of them have got great cardio. There's no stopping either one of these guys for 3 rounds. They're going to go all day. They're going to go for 20 rounds. If you give them 20 rounds, I guarantee you they're just going to heart that shit right through the war of attrition. But in this one, given that Forrest Griffin does the way he does, I mean, he's never really changed his style. Got excellent leg kicks. And if Rich Franklin's not careful, Forrest Griffin's going to take out that front leg. Other than that, I don't see too many combinations landing against a Rich Franklin for Forrest Griffin. Perhaps if it goes to the ground, Forrest Griffin might have a good chance there. Forrest Griffin has underestimated jiu-jitsu skills, underestimated grappling skills. And we know he can win by submission. He is the only American, the only person in mixed martial arts history to tap Shogun out. Now, you can argue that Shogun was coming on injuries and all that crap. Doesn't matter, because at the end of the day, on paper, what to tell you, Forrest Griffin got a tap out over somebody like Shogun Rua. So in the end, I think, definitely his jiu-jitsu skills are underrated. So is Rich Franklin, but Rich Franklin's technique is a little less, I think, in the jiu-jitsu area than perhaps a Forrest Griffin. That's my opinion. I'm sure there's a lot of you guys that are going to disagree with me on that. And, hey, if you disagree with me, I love to hear about it. At the end of the day, that's probably just going to go to a decision. I don't know about unanimous, probably split. For such a fight like Rich Franklin and Forrest Griffin, 2 odd styles that aren't the technically best styles, 2 very quick former champions in their heyday. Novelty fight. These guys are going to beat the crap out of each other because they both are guaranteed to do some damage to each other. In the end of the day, I just think this is probably going to be Rich Franklin's day. I think maybe by a decision fight. It's just a technique thing. I think maybe a little bit better in the technique overall, but look out for Forrest Griffin on the ground. Moving into the main event, I can't wait to talk to you guys about this. The Phenom, Vitor Belfort, finally gets his shot. God, I'm so happy. And a lot of you might disagree, with the fact that old Belfort got his shot after one fight in the UFC, beat Rich Franklin, and he gets a title fight. Well, why is that? I'll tell you why. Because he's freaking Vitor Belfort. That's why. He's a legend in this sport. His fights made the sport what it is today. People like him, Randy Couture, Maurice Smith, every one of these dudes made the sport what it is today. And Vitor Belfort coming out as a jiu-jitsu trained, straight from the Gracie camp, Brazil, excuse me, I'm getting excited. Straight out of Brazil, a Gracie camp, Gracie trained jiu-jitsu. They used to call him Little Gracie. That was before we knew who he was. And he came out with boxing. He came out with the fastest hands we'd ever seen in mixed martial arts. A young 19, 20-year-old kid just demolishing grown-ass men. So here we go. We're like 15 years later. Well, I won't say 15, but 10 years later. And here we are. And he's a different fighter now. He doesn't, everybody still wants to talk about and they want to hype up the speedy hands of Vitor Belfort. But if you really watch his fights over the last couple of years, everything he has fought has been a knockout in the first round in the last couple of years. Maybe second. Terry Martin might have been I think Terry Martin was a first round. Regardless, all of his fights in the last couple of years have ended in first round knockouts or second round knockouts. And it's not that he's been fighting the top of the most top competition, but I mean, he beat Rich Franklin. He Terry Martin, Matt the Law Lindland. He's knocking people out. What he's done is he's kept the jiu-jitsu. And he's got several submission victories. He's definitely a jiu-jitsu fighter. I'm not worried about Vitor Belfort's jiu-jitsu versus Anderson Silva. Anderson Silva, everybody's going to go, oh, but he's a Nogueira trained, and you know, you fell into the Chael Sonnen hype about the Nogueiras being like a Happy Meal toy when you win your belt from jiu-jitsu from those guys. Look, let's break it down. Anderson Silva trains with the Nogueira brothers, two awesome jiu-jitsu teachers. Big Nog, obviously much better at Brazilian jiu-jitsu than Little Nog. Little Nog winning most of his fights being standing up. I mean, obviously his jiu-jitsu was great, tap people out like Dan Harrison and Armbar back in the Pride days. But as of late, Jason Brills, Ryan Bader have both shown that Little Nog's jiu-jitsu isn't the best either. And Big Nogueira hasn't scored a tap-out victory over anyone since Big Tim Sylvia. And I'm afraid I think I might be able to tap that guy out. That was wrong, and I apologize, because I don't want Tim Sylvia knocking down my door and eating me for breakfast. Aside from that, I think what it comes down to is I didn't fall into the Chael Sonnen hype. Well, I did, a little bit. But what I'm saying is, I'm a little confused. Let me back up. I'm excited to be doing this for you guys. To me, it is, he took steroids. And we've got to put an asterisk next to the performance now because he beat the crap out of Anderson Silva for 4.5 rounds, ladies and gentlemen. You can shake it any way you want to shake it. To me, steroids doesn't win a fight. The only thing that proved to me was that Chael Sonnen isn't as confident in himself as he wants us to believe. Therefore, I no longer buy into his hype. I just enjoy his rhetoric because he's an asshole, and I can see why he makes a pretty decent politician. With that being said, he showed us a lot of weaknesses. Anderson Silva isn't necessarily the best striker in the world all the time. He's just, I mean, he's just really great at it. I mean, he's precise, he's quick, he's not got the greatest power. But Chael Sonnen isn't the best boxer. He's not the best striker, and he almost beat Anderson Silva without even using wrestling. He almost knocked Anderson Silva out a couple of times in that fight, and he was shaking him, dude, and he was busting him. Anderson Silva tried to duck and dive and dodge, and what did he get? Bop, 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 bop. He got punched in the mouth. Vitor Belfort is going to eat that up. Are you kidding me? Vitor Belfort's going to destroy that. Let Anderson Silva do the cocky, bait him into me doing and dancing. Oh, I'm Roy Jones, bitch. I'm Roy. No, look, what you are is a tall, lanky sumbitch who got lucky a few times, I think. You've had a slew of fights in your title reign against people who don't deserve, like Chael Sonnen said, to hold that weight in their division. They don't even hold credibility in their division. That's why they're not there anymore. Damian Maia, he's still around, but look, that guy's a long way from a title fight against anybody. It does not matter. That guy's got a lot to learn still. So when it comes right down to it, bottom line, striking versus striking, it just depends, man. But Vitor Belfort's not the kind of guy that's just going to rush in on you anymore. He is a conservative fighter. He's smarter, he's older, he's wiser. He loves Jesus. I don't know what that has to do with anything, but damn it, he wants us to know about it all the time. He loves Jesus. So there you go. He's got the power of Jesus, and he's a more conservative boxer. Therefore, I believe that Vitor Belfort will probably get this fight in the second round. Yeah, that's right. I'm calling round 2 for Vitor Belfort. This is going to be a TKO or a knockout, straight up. He's not going to buy into the Anderson Silva ducking, dodging, and diving. He's not going to chase Anderson Silva like Anderson Silva maybe wants to be chased. And when Anderson Silva throws a punch, Belfort's going to be all over him. Belfort's hands are quicker than Silva's. So at the end of the day, striking versus striking is a very even match, but I think Belfort's got the advantage. Jiu-jitsu versus jiu-jitsu, I'm going to tell you that I think Vitor Belfort has the advantage. Yes, Anderson Silva is very good at winning by submission, usually by triangle choke, but let's think about that. He's just a very lanky dude. he spent 4.5 rounds getting pummeled on the ground by Chael Sonnen, a superior wrestler. But if his jiu-jitsu was so superior, then being on his back should have been like second nature to him. I'm not the greatest fighter in the world. I never fought professionally once in my life. I got hurt before I could ever do such a thing. But I trained with some of the baddest dudes in my town for almost 5 years, which means I spent all my training getting my ass kicked. And I spent a lot of time on my back. And I learned that area of jiu-jitsu very well. So to me, if you got a guy who's putting you on your back and that's your bread and butter and you are so great at jiu-jitsu, well, that's like your primary position in jiu-jitsu, being in the guard. It was made for small men, for small people to defend themselves and to be able to fight back against big guys. So, and that's it. This is Addict MMA. Peace. I'm out of here.